What's going on, y'all? I'm your host, Paco Elijah, and you're tuning in to Liberty Watch. This is our 8th episode, many more to come. Make sure you like the page if you haven't already. Occupy the Media and occupythemedia.com as well. I think Austin Peterson just shared one of our videos over the weekend, and that's great. That's going to help us get some more views, more likes, and we keep on growing. We got to, spread the message of liberty and keep exposing the media. And I'm hoping that we'll be speaking to someone that's running for office in Florida. She just got endorsed by Ron Paul, and I'm hoping I can ask her some questions, maybe get an interview, post it up on the show, post it up on the Facebook page. So let's get right into it. Today is Independence Day, July 4th, supposedly celebrating our freedom and our independence, and we're free, and to me, it's just no. We're just really celebrating tyranny and the nanny state, and it's such a sad sight when I see Americans celebrating, and they tell me it's because of our independence, because of our freedom. But are we really free when we sit down and really think about it? Are we really free when certain places in this country you can't collect rainwater, you can't have access to raw milk, you can't grow gardens in your own yard in certain places. So we got all these rules and regulations, major cities putting curfews on residents. How is this freedom? It's not. We just have a lot, certain things that we're allowed to do, certain privileges that we have, but we don't have freedom. We don't have our God-given rights, our basic rights. We just don't. I mean, think about it. You drinking water with fluoride in it, you probably have no real say in that. If you don't agree with the war, the Iraq war, the war in Afghanistan, the war in Libya, well, guess who's paying for it? The taxpayers. The majority of Americans don't agree with it, but the majority of Americans are taxpayers. They paying for it. All these wars, you don't agree with the bailouts. The majority of Americans don't agree with the bailouts. But who's paying for the bailouts? The majority of Americans, the taxpayers. So all these things that we don't agree with, we paying for it though, and we having our rights violated. But somehow we free though, and that's something that I think needs to be addressed. Is that it's a sickness, it's a disease in the mind when you celebrate your freedom, or you celebrate something you don't have. There's something wrong. It needs to be pointed out. Is that it is like a sickness. Like you ain't really free. You're getting all excited, and I put in a recent post here, it's like a prisoner celebrating privacy. He has no privacy. He could be watched at any moment, at all times of the day and night. There is no privacy. Right now, we have no freedoms. No real freedoms, okay? And we're gonna a couple articles I have here over the last week. It's gonna show more and more, show us more and more how unfree we are, how far away from freedom we really are. And we need to understand that and point that out to people that, we need to, as long as we keep telling ourselves that we somehow free or we have freedom, we're never going to address the real problem, the root cause of the problem, big government, the violations of our liberties and our individual rights. We need to have that. And we keep telling ourselves that we're free when we're really not. Then this thing is going to keep on going. It's a never-ending cycle of us just being a bunch of dummies and a bunch of sheep, and buying into the fact that we're America, home of the brave and free, and we're really not. It's like the home of the nanny state and the scared. Everybody's, caught up in fear. They're scared of something. They're scared of Mexican immigrants, or they're scared of ISIS, or, it's just, the government just has everybody so scared, and they're willing to give up their rights. And then we sit here and celebrate like we're free, and we're not. And some people say, well, why don't you go to another country then? If you don't think we're free here, why don't you go over there? Or why don't you, isn't it good at least that we're not as bad as other countries? Like, is that what that's the bar that we're going to put ourselves up to now? It's just that as long as we're better than other countries, and that's a good thing? It's not. We're the bully of the world. We have the world reserve currency. We're not on the other end of our foreign policy. So, of course, if in other nations and you're overseas, yeah, it's probably a lot worse in a lot of those countries compared to the U.S. But at the same time, does that mean that we should just allow it to continue then? Allow our freedoms to erode, allow them to keep taking our rights away and our freedoms away, and we keep telling ourselves that we have it? Should we just keep going along with it since we're not as bad as other countries? No, it isn't. It doesn't matter. I'm not comparing us to any country. The way I'm looking at the Bill of Rights, and I'm looking at all these laws and all these actions by the police and the government, and I see that our rights are being violated, and that's all that matters. That ain't freedom. There ain't freedom when you paying for wars you don't agree with. It ain't freedom when your money isn't real, the government printing it out of thin air, and it's got a hidden tax that Ron Paul calls the inflation tax. You're not free. You're not free when you could be unarmed and no threat to the police and still get shot down because, I don't know, they're having a bad day or something, and there'd be no accountability and they get off. You're not free, and we need to stop telling ourselves that we are. We got to wake up to that fact so we can address the problem and then really get to that freedom and really truly be able to celebrate it and feel good about it. I want to celebrate my independence and freedom. Believe me, I really do. But I'm not a dummy. And I'm not going to sit here and tell myself just because it feels all good and feel all nice inside and all that about, your country and people waving the flags and painting it on their faces and feeling all good about their country and all this warmth inside. Well, no, it ain't there with me. Let's get free first and then we can start celebrating. But just as a reminder to how free we are, let's talk about some of these stories coming up. So I have here, in regards to the RNC, Republican National Convention, the FBI has been visiting the homes of activists in advance of the RNC. Because that's how free we are. If you practice protest, FBI gonna visit you before the next protests come up. It says here, law enforcement investigators this week began visiting the homes of local activists. A spokeswoman for the local branch of the FBI acknowledged that community outreach is taking place as law enforcement officials try to make sure next month's GOP convention is a safe and secure event. Jocelyn Rosnick, a leader with the local chapter of the National Lawyers Guild, said over a dozen activists have reported visits by teams of federal and local law enforcement officials this week. And what kind of message do you think that sends to people that want to protest? That people that want to go out and practice their freedom of speech. The message they're sending is, I dare you to go protest. I dare you to practice your freedom of speech. It is a way to intimidate people. It's a way to stomp out free speech. Something is wrong when we have these candidates come in town, okay, Donald Trump, and he's supposed to be the nominee, and he got all these votes, but yet all these people in the country are that upset with him, that mad at him, that they want to show up and protest, and upset with the party. If you got a lot of Americans, a big part of America, or let's say a big percentage of America supporting you somehow, you're the front runner. People are supposed to be mad at Democrats, so Republicans should be getting a warm welcome. No, that we so upset with the whole system that all these people willing to show up, all these people willing to protest, and we should sit here and wonder why. No, we should understand that it's because we're fed up with the system, that we're upset and something is wrong when you're the nominee and you're bringing out all these people to protest you. You should be bringing people together. People should be wanting to see you come in town. People should be wanting to see you come to this convention. And if anything, they should be supporting you on the outside, not protesting you. But this is how unpopular all these politicians are. It's how unpopular both parties are. But somehow they're being voted in by millions of votes. And people say I'm crazy when I tell them the vote don't count. So the vote number is definitely being tampered with. These people are so hated, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and there's going to be protesters at both. But somehow they get all these votes. Somehow they get millions and millions of people to vote for them, though. No. If something don't look right, it's usually because, it's a reason for it. Now, they talked to one of the protesters that was out there, that got visited by the FBI, and it says here his name is Randy Cunningham. They asked him if he or anyone else planned to try to disrupt the convention and its related activities. Cunningham said he told them that city officials, not activists, have created the potential for chaos by failing to approve sooner permits to demonstrate. Again, that's freedom right there. You got to get a permit to demonstrate your free speech because we free. Quote, if you want to know who is promoting disorder, you should ask City Hall, Cunningham told the detectives. If you cannot plan a demonstration properly, you are asking for trouble. Don't complain to us, complain to your employers. Cunningham said he told the detectives that his intention is to march peacefully and that he is unaware of what others may be planning. But he said he told the detectives he wouldn't share such details if he did know more. Quote, I told them I sure as heck wouldn't tell you because you have your Bluefoot wall of silence and so do we, Cunningham said during our interview. And I love that. Telling the law enforcement or the FBI that, you know what, I don't know anything. But even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. You guys got your secrecy. And because of the environment you created, we got to have our secrecy. And so I definitely, totally feel him on that. Now, I also agree with him because he was saying in the article that he would try to stop anyone from causing disruption. Like, I don't want to tell anyone to go out there and cause violence and cause disruption or throw things or, become violent. But you know what? If somebody's going to do that, I'm not going over to the government and snitching and helping the government for what? They're the one creating all this mess. They're the ones creating all these problems. We just need to be able to defend ourselves as Americans, arm ourselves at these events, and be able to protect ourselves in case somebody wants to, create violence towards one of us, towards an individual who is innocent. They not have nothing to do with the convention, nothing to do with the event, or even the supporters and the protesters. Like, nobody there should have violence brought upon them. But you never know what's going to happen when we're dealing with protesters. You never know what's going to happen when you're dealing with people who are upset and fed up, people who are broke, people who are homeless, people who don't know where they're going to get their next check from, their next meal from. Well, you know what? Don't be surprised when it boils over, when people blow up, when people do things that you think is irrational, but I'm not going to government to be some snitch and to help them find people who are willing to be troublemakers. That's not the job for the rest of us. Our job is to confront government, get them to give us back our freedoms and stop violating our freedoms. And, we'll fix the problems ourselves. There'll be a lot less maniacs running around if we have more freedom. The problem is everybody's all upset, everybody's angry, and everybody's a victim of big government. And so everyone reacts and responds differently, but it's not going to be good. So people are going to act out. Some people are going to be willing to put their life on the line and get shot or get tased or whatever the case may be. And when it does happen, government just use that as an excuse to take more of our freedoms and to watch us even more. Also here, pertaining to the RNC, we have an article here talking about they got protest insurance coverage for $50 million. It says here Cleveland officials on Wednesday voted to buy a $50 million protest insurance policy for the Republican National Convention. The City Board of Control, a panel composed of top aides to Mayor Frank Jackson, without discussion approved paying a $9.5 million fee to AON Risk Services Northeast. That's compared to $1.7 million officials in Tampa, Florida spent in 2012 when they hosted that year's GOP convention. The policy would protect the city and its employees against any claims resulting from hosting and providing security for the convention. While the city self-insures its own property and employees, the extra policy will apply to any damage of public property, out-of-town police and their equipment, and any other legal claims made by people arrested during the 4-day GOP convention scheduled on July 18th. So, more protection for government, more protection for them, and who's paying for that? Again, where is this money coming from? There's all these tax dollars for what? For a convention? Why do we even have this convention for? Why do parties have conventions? Why are we funding parties whatsoever or any of these conventions? The tax dollars, taxpayer money, it should not be going on. If these parties want to fund them themselves and people want to donate to have these conventions, then fine. But none of this money should be spent from the taxpayers on security, on protection, coming up with all these rules like we're going to talk about here next, with all the rules at the RNC that they got to enforce. So tax dollars being spent on this Republican convention, even though a lot of taxpayers are not registered Republicans, we're still paying for it. And then we're paying for the security. And then, what is this? Then if you want to go over there, you have to abide by all these rules. These rules that your tax dollars are being spent to be enforced. This is, and you free though. Independence Day, July 4th though, we're free and independent, right? This is what I be trying to tell people is like, open your eyes. You ain't free, okay? It's just because we're not as bad as other countries don't mean anything. We're still not free. We're living in tyranny, and it's only going to get worse unless we speak out on it. Now, referring to these rules here with the RNC, it says here, within the event zone, camping, as well as a laundry list of legal weapons and other items will be banned in public areas. So, gun-free zone. You know what that is, really, a killing zone. Police say the items, including coolers, puppets, rope, string, squirt guns, and tennis balls, have been used as weapons or to conceal explosives during past large-scale political protests. So because a terrorist decided to use one of these items, now you got to ban me from having any of those items. This is freedom, though. It says here, Wednesday's changes also explicitly said homeless people living within the event zone will be allowed to possess the items banned under the event zone rules, provided that the items are kept and used in the area in which the person lives. Okay. Cleveland's new rules also offer extended parade times between July 19th and July 21st. Under the new rules, the city will grant protest permits on these 3 days between 8:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. So that's the free speech time. You got the free speech zone and you got the free speech time. You got regulations after regulations, rules after rules on us, not government, but on us. But somehow you free them. You having that cookout, enjoying that burger and that beer because you think you free. You think you independent. You're not. We're not close to it. And we need to recognize it and speak out on it. And if anything, we should be using this day, maybe not to celebrate, but to fight back, to respond to how unfree we are. All right, so I'm gonna post those articles up for you guys pertaining to the RNC, but I think it's pretty amazing though. Trump comes in town, boy, all your rights just go away. The police state, the militarization of the police, all of it just come out in full force, and it's gonna be there for sure at the RNC. And you remember back and think back on July 4th, think back on all the people that telling you are acting like they're free, pretending that they're free. And when you see what happens at the RNC or any of these conventions in history, you can go back and see all the protests. You're going to see just how free we really are. And when you look at the police state, you're going to have a hard time believing that it's even in America. Some of these videos of these RNC and the DNC, it's amazing. You think you're looking at Iraq or you're looking at another country overseas. All right, some other news here. Secret rules make it pretty easy for the FBI to spy on journalists. This is out of The Intercept. I think they released some new documents here. So, of course, spying on more journalists. We got to fight freedom of speech because ideas are powerful. Because information is powerful. Knowledge is power. And they know that. So they got to block that. They got to somehow, keep us from real information and keep us from being educated. So that way, we can't have an understanding of what's going on and address the problem. And one big problem that we have with big government is that they violate our free speech. And there should be no spying on any journalist, regardless of what they say. Because words are just words. That's it. I don't care if you're saying something that a radical jihadist would say, or something that just an angry parent would say, or that any teenager would say. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's speech. Now, it says here, the classified rules obtained by The Intercept and dating from 2013 govern the FBI's use of national security letters, which allow the Bureau to obtain information about journalists' calls without going to a judge or informing the news organization being targeted. The rules stipulate that obtaining a journalist's records with a national security letter requires the sign-off of the FBI's General Counsel and the Executive Assistant Director of the Bureau's National Security Branch, in addition to the regular chain of approval. It says here, quote, "These supposed rules are incredibly weak and almost non-existent. As long as they have that second sign-off, they're basically good to go," said Trevor Tim, executive director of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which has sued the Justice Department for the release of these rules. Quote, "The FBI is entirely able to go after journalists, and with only one extra hoop they have to jump through." Exactly. So not only are they violating our rights, we're funding the FBI, tax dollars, so we're paying for them to violate our rights. And then when we want to have access to information that should be of our knowing, we should be able to have access to it because we're the taxpayers. It's our tax dollars. We're paying for it. There should be no real government secrecy. Maybe from outside a few secrets in the military, something to protect the country for very few exceptions. But outside of that, there should be none of these secrets. And we're paying for it. It's our it's our information. It's our data. It's the taxpayers' data. So we should have access to it. So it's amazing that you have to sue for this. You have to sue to find out what these rules are, to find out what they're actually doing behind closed doors. And you find out later on that they've been lying to us. That's always the case. It says here, a spokesperson for the FBI, Christopher Allen, declined to comment on the rules or say if they had been changed since 2013, except to say that they are very clear that the FBI cannot predicate investigative activity solely on the exercise of First Amendment rights. Okay, says who? According to who? So, you can, how are we supposed to know that? How are we supposed to trust them on that? This is what's just amazing, is that they get to decide when the First Amendment, when it's gone beyond First Amendment rights. They get to decide when your speech is a little too dangerous, and then you need to be watched. I tell people, you need to stop thinking of this NSA network and spying network, FBI network of looking for terrorists and looking for terrorism and fighting terror. No, because if they were, they wouldn't have to take up everybody's information. They wouldn't have to watch everybody. You need to think of it differently. It's to watch dissenters, people that are speaking out against big government, people who are a threat against big government, people like Ron Paul, people maybe like Rand, people like, maybe those conservatives that were being targeted by the IRS. I don't know, maybe them. People that are speaking out about our privacy. That is being used for that, to have this database so they can have access to all the information they want on people that they think are important to listen to, that they think there's a good reason to pay attention to for their own interests, for their personal reasons, whatever their agenda may be. Because maybe there might be people that speak out for privacy rights, people that speak out against the NSA, against the FBI. Who knows? Maybe some of those people have information. And maybe some of those people know more than they're supposed to. And so they want to keep tabs on those people. I don't know. But what I do know is that it's obviously not being used to combat terrorism. It's obviously not. Why you need a whole network on all of us? So I think we need to wake up to that and really, confront the FBI on that. Like, why are we all being watched and listened to, and you guys want to have so much more authority and power over us and our information and our phones and access to our history and our data and our metadata for what? If somebody is a terrorist and they give you the suspicion that they're a terrorist, go get a warrant, do what you have to do to get that warrant, and then you can handcuff them and arrest them. Outside of that, it's not the FBI or the NSA's job to be protecting us or keeping us safe, and they're obviously not doing a good job at it anyways. We're supposed to defend ourselves. As long as we don't have gun-free zones, as long as we have our Second Amendment rights, our First Amendment rights, we, the people, can come together and defend ourselves in our communities, our neighborhoods, our neighbors. We can defend ourselves from all acts of violence, whether it's massive terrorism or mass shooting or just a robbery or a thief, whoever. We just need to have access to our rights. And we're going to talk about how California's taken more of our right to defend ourselves. So when we think of it like that, where government ain't there to protect us and we're supposed to protect ourselves, then we realize that they're the ones creating all the problems, that they're the ones, watching everybody when they really, if you're going to argue that they should be watching anyone, they should only be watching a few, but they're not doing that. And lo and behold, they're not stopping any of these terrorist acts. They're still happening. All right. I'll also post up this link, and I'll post up the documents here on the FBI rules, the link to that, so you can check that out for yourself. In other news here, Snowden news. It says here, Kremlin admits Snowden Russian agent. So I don't know, has Snowden been ousted as a Russian agent? It says here, in a remarkable interview this week, Franz Klintsevich, a senior Russian security official, explained the case matter-of-factly, quote, "Let's be frank, Snowden did share intelligence. This is what security services do. If there's a possibility to get information, they will get it," he said, according to 20committee.com. And it says here, and I thought about this too right before I came up to it, but it says one reason for this may be Snowden's recent tepid criticism via Twitter of Russia's draconian new laws on domestic surveillance, which vastly exceed any of the activities of the Western democracies that Snowden has so strongly criticized from his FSB hideaway. Now, last week we were talking about this and how he was putting out on Twitter talking about Big Brother in Russia, which is amazing that you could be over there and still take shots at your host, the people that's allowing you to stay in their country. But nonetheless, I'm glad he spoke out. Everybody has privacy rights, but is it because is this Russian security official speaking out because Snowden really is a Russian agent and they're mad about what he's talking about, or is it because they're upset with what he's talking about and they want to say that he's a Russian security official to in some way harm his reputation? I don't know, but I always tell people that bring this up, is Snowden a spy, or is he working with Russia? All the other conspiracies that are out there. In my view, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. In due time, we'll find out if there is anything else to find out. I think people focus too much on things that don't matter. The way I look at it is, let's focus on the message, all right? And regardless of who Snowden is, his background is he or who he works for, regardless if any of that is true or has any truth in it, all that matters is what he's saying is right. When he's talking about individual rights, when he's talking about privacy is one of the most important, if not the most important right for us to have. When he's talking about exposing the NSA and their database and explaining how it is that it works and what they do and speaking to the world and speaking to all these conferences and educating people, all I care about is the message. If something else turns out to be different, well, we'll address that at that point in time. But as of right now, Snowden is going around educating the masses on their right to privacy and how they're being spied on and how they're being watched. And I think that's a good thing, and that's what we need to focus on. Everything else, to me, is pretty much irrelevant. But I do find it interesting, though, that this just came out after his recent tweeting about Big Brother in Russia. So we'll see, probably be some more news to come on that. I didn't see too many headlines on it yet. But, okay, so to California now. Because we know how much California loves their freedom and how much they love celebrating their freedom. But Governor Jerry Brown signs bulk of sweeping gun control package into law. So on Friday, he signed 6 gun control bills into law. Now, the bills the governor signed will do this. It said 1, require an ID and background check to purchase ammunition and create a new state database of ammunition owners. Now that sounds like freedom, right? A database of ammunition owners just buying ammunition, and you got to get a background check now. Not even a gun, just the ammunition now. So 2, ban possession of ammunition magazines that hold more than 10 bullets. And 3, restrict the loaning of guns without background checks to close family members. And that's how they use that excuse to now be involved and somehow be involved in every transaction now, in every gun transaction, whether there's money involved or not. It's just, again, but we're free though. You want to loan me your gun? You want to give me a gun for my birthday, Christmas, my homeboy, or whoever, my family member, whoever, and but I got to go check in with the government first though. I got to go let them know what we're doing, because I'm free, because I'm independent. Now, it also, I found another article here. It says the new law gives California a right to temporarily confiscate gun owners' weapons. Smells like freedom. On Friday, Governor Jerry Brown signed 6 gun control bills into law, including an expansion of the 1989 law known as the assault weapons ban. Under the confiscation law, which went into effect in January, California residents can lose their weapons without being convicted of a crime or being institutionalized. Police or immediate family members must persuade a judge to sign off on what is called a gun violence restraining order, which lasts up to 21 days but can be extended. This this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about violating our rights, our Second Amendment rights. They should not be infringed on. Why does it matter what someone else says I'm going to possibly do or says I'm a threat to myself? It does not matter. If other law-abiding citizens and other Americans can defend themselves, then they need not worry about what I'm going to do to myself or what I'm thinking about doing when I go out in public. Because as long as there's people there to shoot back, fight back, and defend themselves, then things are going to be okay. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. We're going to still have crazy people out there, but it's definitely going to deter against it. And that's what we have to recognize. But what does this type of restraining order have to do with freedom? If I ain't violate anybody's rights and I ain't commit a crime, I haven't stolen anything, I haven't damaged anyone's property, I haven't done anything with the gun to anyone, then what's the point of this? Again, this is just big government allowing people to become snitches for the government. And really, you're not even really snitching because there's nothing to tell. Who knows what this person could say, or this family member or friend or whoever, or a police officer. Yeah, a police officer could tell the judge. And who are they more likely to listen to? Okay? It's big government against the little guy. And, big government got the upper hand. And, we're definitely leaning more towards tyranny than we are freedom. And we need to think about that today when we're out, having cookouts and swimming and celebrating and in our minds telling ourselves we're free when we're really not. Also, in other news, Vermont's GMO labeling law is now in effect. So I got an article here. I'll post that up so you guys can check it out. Looks like it took effect, I think, July 1st. And then another article here from Political that I'll put up, basically saying that Rand Paul voted against it. Now, I agree with that. I kind of used to be on the fence, but then when I thought about it in the way that Ron Paul educated us about liberty and freedom and how government can't regulate really anything and does a bad job at it anyways, now I realized that, yeah, this is something that the free market should be addressing. Unfortunately, we don't have a free market, so the problem is the government subsidies, the government handouts, government being in bed with corporations that are feeding us pretty much. Government in bed with the FDA. So if we get government out of all these corporations, companies, FDA, get rid of these regulations, get rid of these government agencies, let the free market take its course, then we're going to have more competition. We're going to have more choice, more healthy food out there, more people willing to label their food on their own. But somehow people want to call on government because they're afraid of the food being bad for them. Somehow government's going to make it better, and now you're going to know all the GMOs that are out there. I mean, let's really think about it. What's really going to happen? Certain corporations are going to get in bed with government, and government's going to allow them to not put that label on. And then before you know it, some of the food you're eating is not going to be labeled, even though it has GMOs in it. Or they're going to change what GMO really means. Or, it's just government is inefficient. It's more tax dollars, more resources, more time and energy wasted. It's not going to work. So we got to let the market take its place. We need to address the real root cause, which is subsidies, which is government bailouts and handouts, government getting in bed with corporations. When we have free markets, then the free market, the consumer will be in charge, and most consumers want healthy food. And that's what the market is going to provide, because that's going to be what's in demand. But we don't have a free market right now. We have a rigged market. That's why almost everything we eat is bad for us. I mean, like I said earlier, we got fluoride in our water. But you're free though. You're free though. But you're drinking poison in your water. Okay, so but I'm glad Rand Paul stood up against that. It's not an easy vote to take, because a lot of people, I think, in the freedom movement are not so opposed to GMO labeling, but I think they're looking at it the wrong way. I don't like GMOs. I'm against it too. I'm not saying I don't eat them, because I don't really know. It's probably all over the place. But I do want healthier food, and I always try to tell people we should eat healthier and be more healthier and have more energy. Shoot, to have to do this activism and to keep fighting for liberty and spreading the message, you got to be somewhat healthy. So yeah, you should be against GMOs, but that doesn't mean that you need to be for the government to get involved. I'm against, doing crack and doing drugs and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean I want the government to come in and throw people in jail or to regulate it. It's just that's my personal, choice. And that's what we should be for. We should be for choice. Now, to end today's show, I want to end it on some good news. Always try to keep some good news going because we got to be motivated, especially when I just gave you a list of bad news. We got to have some good news, right? So I talked about a candidate last week that got endorsed by, I think, the Liberty Caucus out in Florida. But just recently, she got endorsed by Ron Paul. And this is who hopefully we can get an interview, ask her some questions. Maybe I'll ask you guys if you know any questions you want me to ask her. But her name is Rebecca Bidlock, if I'm saying it correctly. She is on track to become the youngest female congresswoman in United States history. Wouldn't that be awesome? Someone who was endorsed by Ron Paul being the youngest female congresswoman. That would be great. Great news. Maybe make some headlines because of it and use that, to go ahead and spread the message, get the truth out there. It says here the conservative millennial is running for an open seat in Florida's 1st congressional district and has already gained the support of constitutional conservatives like Representative Justin Amash. Now she's earned the endorsement of the original Liberty Congressman Ron Paul. Quote, Rebecca's commitment to and experience in advancing the principles of liberty show that she is the type of leader the GOP, Florida, and the country need. And this is what it's all about. This is what I'm always talking about, is spreading the message to educate the masses, and we got to support the people that are in there taking the fight to the machine, taking the fight to Washington, taking the fight to the big government. And so we got to support people like this. We got to get behind them. Donate if you can. I'm going to put the link up. This is from WashingtonExaminer.com, and then I'll put up her site as well. Try to get her on the show. But I think it's very important that we don't lose sight of that. Now, I know a lot of us get discouraged. We don't want to get involved in government. We don't have nothing to do with it. We just want to turn away from it and just go in our own world and just worry about ourselves. But we got to back the people that are in there. We got to keep on fighting every day, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how many laws and rules that they pass. This is a good day, a good reminder of that, okay, we're not free. Okay, we're not independent. But what do we need to do to get free? What do we need to do to get independent? And part of that answer, whatever it is, part of that answer is we got to get involved politically. And if we can't get involved politically, or we only can do so much, then at the very least, we got to support and get behind those who are in there putting up a fight, those that are in there, risking their lives, taking time out of the day, using a lot of energy and effort and resources because they don't get hooked up by lobbyists and they don't get these big campaign contributions. So they're out there fighting, and we got to back them up and let them know that there are people out there that support them, because otherwise liberty dies, the liberty movement dies. We all go our own way. We all just settle for tyranny. We all celebrate every year on July 4th like we got freedom, feel all good inside until we wake up and realize it's all a dream. Let's call it the American dream. But that's what it is. We just got to keep on fighting, man. No matter how bad it gets, I don't care if you're on your back for liberty. It feels like it got to that point sometimes. It doesn't matter. You just keep on fighting. Anyways, that's the show. Make sure you guys like the page if you haven't already. Keep spreading those videos. We're going to keep on growing. If you want to become a writer on Occupy the Media, you believe in the movement, you believe that the media is public enemy number one, you want to help expose big government, then please, by all means, hit me up. You can check me out on Facebook, Paco Elijah. Until next time, peace.